How you doing, sir? Melissa, I'm going to go ahead and make you a co-host as well. I didn't know if you had any slides to share or anything like that, but
I do.
I'm going to make you a co-host, and then I'm also just going to allow everybody to share that screen. Okay. Melissa, I'm just going to turn it over to you. I want to make sure that as much of this time it is really focused on you, but man, I sure do love you, and I sure am happy to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, John. I really appreciate it. My name is Melissa Agudelo. Bienvenidos a todos. Buenas tardes. It's nice to see everybody. Let's see, I'll start by introducing myself. Let's see, a little bit about me. I'm a 25-year veteran of working in public schools. I did start out with Teach for America back in the day when there were like 300 of us going out into the country to do the work. And I've stuck with education ever since. I still plan to go to law school when I don't like this anymore, but considering I'm working on my EDD, law school may not happen. We'll see. I currently serve as principal of Lincoln High School in Southeast San Diego. And I'm going to share some thoughts at the very end about our decision that was released last night to not play Cathedral Catholic in football, because I think it is related to relational choices that we make. And I want to talk about relationships today, which I think is sort of my bread and butter. I did work at High Tech High for 9 years. I was lucky enough to serve 5 years at High Tech High International, where I was a classroom teacher and dean of students. And then I was at Media Arts for 4 years, where I served as dean of students. And I moved over into the San Diego Unified, where I worked with big picture learning for 4 years at the San Diego Met. And then I was approached to consider heading over to Lincoln, which is where I'm at now in the middle of my first year. I could not be happier. I am shocked at how much I love it, even though I knew that I would. I am the proud mother of 3 phenomenal young ladies. You know, people used to always say to me, well, why didn't you try for the boy? And I always said I did twice. And now I have 3 girls, and I'm fully aware that it is my job to raise my feminist army. So here we are. I consider myself a maker. So I love to work with my hands and to make things. And I love my family and to be creative with them. All my nieces and nephews lined up in a fun wraparound picture at the bottom. And much to everyone's shock and amazement, no less my own, I am also a happy dog mom, which if you know me, you know is the craziest thing that I could ever possibly say. So that's just a little bit about me. Oh, I'll say this too. I was in the classroom for 14 years where I taught US history primarily. And I have served as dean of students or vice principal for, I did that for like 7, 8 years. And then I've been a principal for the past 6 years. So I am very happy to be here with you. So when I looked at the conditions for deeper learning that John shared with me, the first one that I actually showed them to my wife, and I said, hey, you know, what do you think I should talk about? And she looked at me and she said, you need to talk about how you build relationships. You need to talk about how you get to know people and how you find your stake in who you are. Lincoln High School is a school that has notoriously in San Diego been a real difficult school for a lot of reasons. And I don't like qualifying my school like that. You should come see us. We are one of the most loving communities you'll ever see. But we are also a school where Cindy Martin famously said, when we get Lincoln right, we'll get education right. So it was humbling when I was asked to move to Lincoln. And when I asked very transparently, can I ask why? And they said, you built a culture at the Met, which we've never seen before, and we want to have that at Lincoln. So I was thinking a lot about what that means and how you know, I've been lucky to work with so many people to be able to grow culture. And so let me see if I can do this from a presenter view. Nope, that's not right. There we go. So my wife and I were kind of going through some stuff, and I kind of broke them down into some categories. So I'm going to talk, when I come to these sorts of talks, I always like to leave with a couple of things, a couple of new things to put up my sleeve. So I want to talk very concretely because I think I'm going to talk a bit about this book, which is currently my most formative book, Ratchetdemic by Christopher Emdin. And I'll talk a little bit about sort of the me-ness that I think is part of this, which I have to acknowledge, but I also want to talk about some of the other stuff. I hold myself to a few rules. One of my first rules is that I'm never in my office, which frustrates a lot of the kids at Lincoln because that's where I keep my snacks. So when they come pounding on my door and I'm not there, I get a whole lot of calls on the walkie. Miss Melissa, where are you? And I'm, usually in a classroom or hanging out with kids, and then they're mad because I'm not in my office for snacks. But I'm not in my office because nothing important happens in my office. Nothing important happens in my office. So I make the effort to be in classrooms. I average about 14 classroom visits a week, and I do have a class walkthrough document that I use when I do that. And I'm going to share that with you in a little bit when I get to the teacher slide. I think it's incredibly important for me to be present and for me to destigmatize the act of being in a classroom. That is something that's really hard to do. It's also really important for students. I like when I go into a classroom and students look up and they go, oh, it's just Miss Melissa, right? It takes time to get to the point that students aren't pretending to be on their best behavior because I walked in, to normalize my presence, to celebrate first and to walk in and to tell the students, hey, I'm just here to love on you and see what you're doing. So that when it gets to the point that I am there for a different reason, there is still no stigma around me walking in. I like to use what I call the Jedi mind trick with my students. And that is that when a conversation is going in a direction that I don't want it to go in, I see a student bringing in past trauma. I see a student who is engaging with me in a way that I am sad to say past educators may have taught that student is how adults will engage with them. One of my favorite things to do is simply to say, this is not the relationship we're going to have. It's just not. I call that my Jedi mind trick. I say it daily, at least dozens of times. So when a student is getting elevated, it's one of my favorite things to say is, sweetheart, you and I are going to be friends. And this is not the relationship we're going to have. So we're going to take just a second and take a deep breath, and then we're going to try this again. And I've done that 2, 3 times, 4 times in a row. I've left a student for 15 minutes with another adult and walked back and said, are you ready? Because we're going to build a relationship we're going to have. And I try to name what that relationship looks like. We're going to be honest with each other. I'm not going to pull the rug out from under you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to make sure that you've had space to be heard. I'm going to ask you for space to hear me. But the relationship we're not going to have is I'm not going to pull the rug out. I'm not going to criminalize you. I'm not going to turn on you. I'm not going to say something different in front of your parents than I'm saying to you now. And I'm going to tell your parents the truth, no matter how hard or how wonderful it is. So the Jedi mind trick for me is one that I use all the time that it's funny. Some of my coworkers have started to identify it. They're like, she's about to Jedi mind trick. And I have to tell you, it works. It sometimes takes a long time to say to a student. I've even said to a student very directly, listen, I don't know who has taught you in the past that this is how a principal speaks to you, but this is not how you and I are going to talk. So I'll be back. I'll be back when you're ready. I make notes to remember things. I make notes about students all the time, and I make notes as to whose grades I need to check every morning. I do at least 5 grade checks every morning, and then I look for those students so that I can then share with them what I'm seeing. I don't want to share with you all the notes, but you can see here on my note taking out the number of notes that I have. So remembering, when a student says to me, when I look at a student's phone and I say, oh, is that your abuelita? And they go, yeah, she died of COVID. And I notice the date, I make a note of the date. I make sure to circle back with the student on that date and to say, hey, I know today's a tough one for you. Let me know if you need to talk. I try to make a note. I can't do that for every student, but I do know that those acts reverberate. And so knowing that I'm being present is really important. I write a personal note to a student at least one a day, every single day of the week. That is without exception. I do it before I leave my office. I leave it on top of my laptop when I leave. My laptop's actually here now, so it's on my workspace. And the first thing I do when I get to my office in the morning is I put it in my back pocket and I look for the student that day to drop off the note. It's non-negotiable. Sometimes I write 2 a day because sometimes I'll write them to the teachers too. I've been doing that a lot at Lincoln. Lincoln is a school with a lot of trauma. There's been a revolving door of leadership, and I've had a number of teachers tell me, hey, I'll learn your last name next year if you're still here. I've had teachers tell me, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but we'll see if you're still doing it next year. So I try to write notes. I try to be present. I try to be as connected as I can be. And I also have to understand that there was a bag of trauma that was created by past educators, and I have inherited that bag. And while I didn't create it, it's still mine. And so I can either choose to dump it out, or I can choose to slowly unravel what's in there. So that's the choice that I make. At the end of every day, I send an appreciation text to somebody, a student, a teacher, a parent, somebody who I've interacted with that day that has really made my day bright. So I share a bright spot every single day. I have to tell you, and John can tell you because he knows me, I'm serious. I really do those things every single day. And it's important to me that I'm able to do that because from my position and the fact that I have positional authority over 1,500 kids in a high trauma school, which I'm going to be very honest, has 9% passing rate on the state math test and 12% passing rate on the state English test. If I start by hitting them on that, all I'm going to do is re-up the trauma that has created that. So I'm choosing not to be that right now. I also hold what I call care team meetings for students that really need some wraparound services. A care team meeting, you might say, oh, that's an SST. I would say there's a difference. An SST is often a meeting that is held when a student needs to be possibly identified for future services. So that's sometimes a child find, you may know that term, or it's simply where you wrap around and say, hey, is it time to get this kid into more reading intervention? Does the kid need more tutoring? What does the student need? A care team meeting is a meeting where we come together and we discuss the emotional side, the connective side. And we look for indicators as to why we might need to hold one of these meetings. When do you call one? When you see any of these or a combination of more than one of them. And it's important that we follow the protocol. So the protocol always starts with appreciations or strengths of the student, always. And the student speaks first. What are the challenges that the student is seeing? The student speaks first. What strategies have you already tried? What's been successful or unsuccessful? I didn't write it here, but the student speaks first. And then we discuss background. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening. Let's talk a little bit about why it's happening. Let's talk a little bit about what we need to know that we don't know. Let's talk a little bit about what we need to understand that we don't understand. The other thing that's important about this meeting is the only adults that are allowed in the room are the ones that the student trusts. That's it. If you really want to be there because you really want to tell that student something and the student doesn't trust you, you're not invited. So this is a hard one for a lot of teachers to swallow when I have to say to them, I'm really sorry, but your student doesn't feel a level of trust with you. This is not about putting services in place. This is about growing and understanding. Now, if you'd like to have a restorative conversation with the student to see if we can get to the point of getting you in that room, I'm happy to do that. And I'm proud to say most teachers say, yes, I would like to have a restorative. I would like to get in that room. But these meetings are crucial in being able to access the student voice and having them understand they're not going to sit in another meeting with me and be talked to or about without centralizing their voice in what we're talking about. I also believe strongly in being a warm demander. Warm demander is straight out of Zaretta Hammond's work. If you've read Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, this is one of my favorite resources that I often hand to teachers when they are struggling to connect with students. So what I might say is, hey, there's 5 different trust generators here. No, you don't need to be as wide open about your life as I am. I'm happy to share a lot of the bumps and bruises that I had in my life, the massive challenges I had in coming out of the closet and moving into my honest self, the massive challenges I've had in feeling authenticated and seen as a Latina leader, the massive challenges that I have felt in always struggling with imposter syndrome. You don't have to be there. You don't have to be there, bro. But what you do need to do is you need to pick some way that you're going to figure out how to be a warm demander. I've seen a lot of success with carrying this around in my pocket. I actually have a laminated version that I keep in a pouch. And for me, it's an important way to say to teachers, you don't have to do it the way I do it. Zaretta says there are lots of different ways to do this. So being a warm demander and making sure that I'm doing that from a place of authenticity. And then finally, I have a rule that when a student is brought to me and they're in trouble, and I have to tell you, this is driving some people at Lincoln kind of crazy, I ask one of 3 questions before we get into why they're there. Sometimes I ask all 3. The first one is, and this is especially true if I don't know a student. If I already have a relationship with a student, I'll be like, all right, sweetheart, let's talk about it. What happened, right? And my rule, of course, is I listen first. But I'll always ask one of these 3 if I don't know the student. I'll ask at the beginning, hey, before we start, I'm probably going to have to call a parent. If I do, who do you want me to call and tell me why? Why is that your preferred parent? Tell me a little bit about mom or dad or uncle or aunt. And then I'll have students say, could you call my grandma? And then I'll say, if they're on your power school, I can. So let me check. Why don't you give me the name? Let's talk about it first. The second question I'll ask is, tell me about a teacher who has made a difference for you. This is my favorite question to ask when a kid comes in and the wall is just like, boom, right? Like, no, I'm not talking to you. Nope, I'm not telling you shit. Nope, I have nothing to say to you, Okay, tell me about a teacher that has made a connection with you. And I have to tell you, there's almost always an answer, right? I'm really sad to say often my 11th graders will say, you want, well, my kindergarten teacher. And I'm like, oh, your kindergarten teacher. Okay, well, let's start there. And then finally, especially for the students that I do know, I might say, hey, before we get into this, tell me your hopes and fears about this conversation. We're about to have a hard conversation. You know everything I don't. What are you hoping comes out of this? And tell me what you're scared is going to come out of this. And then I can validate. Sometimes I'll say to a student, yeah, I hear that fear. And sweetheart, that might be a real one, because I do understand that you had a lot of weed on you and it does look like possession with intent. And yes, I might have to call the police, but it gives me a chance to talk about that first, right? And to say, I'm not going to gotcha you. I'm going to be right here with you through this whole thing, right? But tell me what happened, sweetheart. Let's talk, right? So these are my rules for being there. This is how I hold myself to the highest possible standard of making sure that I'm always present and always willing to listen first. I also believe in being ratchetemic. I'm telling you, man, this book spoke to my soul because I didn't understand that I didn't have a vocabulary for trying really hard to be as authentically me as I am every time I walk in a room, to stop the toxic practice of code switching. And I grew up with a dad who's a sailor, so sometimes the F word comes out of my mouth and I have to be wholly myself every time I'm present with students. I said to 2 students today, oh my God, Amari and Amaya, I love you and I cannot speak to you right now because I am so mad because we talked about this issue yesterday and I am going to give you the respect of walking away for 10 minutes and I'll be back. But I did that in my most authentic self, right? I'm not going to code switch out of the way that I feel emotionally for you. And I want to read just a little point. There's so much I would want to read. One of the things that Dr. Emden talks about in this book is that we have to stop policing ourselves. We have to go for broke. We have to be willing to put ourselves at our most authentic and our most vulnerable. Oftentimes when I go to talks and I hear people talking about, we got to build trust, we got to build relationship with students, I always hear it being a one-way street. Ask students about themselves, listen to them. What are you sharing though? Like what level of vulnerability are you putting out there that's going to show them that you are right there with them, right? And going back to warm demander doesn't need to be the same, but what are you putting out there? What are you willing to talk about? So he says, you know what? I'll go back in a minute because I have some, I'm not going to start reading yet because then I'll be here all day and y'all did not come to book club. So I'm going to move on. Building relationships with teachers. So the reality of Lincoln High School is that I'm walking into a highly traumatized school that has seen a round robin door of administrators that has gone to Lincoln. In the past 7 years, they've had, I think, 8 different leadership teams, and I'm not kidding. And so it is, of course, makes sense that teachers are constantly telling me things like, I started a tardy suite policy today with a reflection document, and I had more than one teacher say to me, yeah, you're going to keep doing that like next week? Because everybody else starts that stuff and nobody finishes anything. And so I said, I appreciate that. Let's talk about this in 2 weeks when I'm still doing it, because you're not going to know I'm still going to be doing it until you see me still doing it. So I'm not going to ask you for trust until I earn that trust, right? One of the other ways that I do that at Lincoln is I have a walkthrough document that I fill out every time I go into classrooms. This walkthrough document immediately sends all of my notes directly to the teacher. So when the teacher says, what did you write or what are you doing? They get the email immediately. So this is set up through an add-on app. And so when I pick the teacher, let's say I'm observing Mr. Santos Vega, when I pick his email address, it automatically populates it into an email the second I hit send. I'm trying very hard to stay focused 100% on data and then on bright spots. So what is the content of the class? Which period did I observe? You can see I already have 20 on this one. And it's because I updated it. I had a feedback session with some teachers who wanted to give me some feedback on it. So I started a new document. My other documents got about 55 walkthroughs on it. Is the daily objective or learning target evident? What is the daily objective or learning target? That's district speak. I don't love it, but sometimes you got to play the game, even if you're not going like code switch for it, you still got to play it. What were the students doing during the time that I was in class? Check all that apply. What percentage of students in the class were engaged in the activities while you were present? Comments regarding student engagement. Nothing in here critical ever goes. It's 100% positive, right? I was really struck that when I walked around, every single math table was truly engaged in a debate about the question you had up on the board, right? Who's carrying the cognitive load? We're doing a lot of work with Zaretta. at my school right now, and so we're thinking a lot about who's carrying the cognitive load at Lincoln. Is connecting evident? Do I see the teacher walking around and connecting with students in a variety of different ways? How was it evident? Spoiler alert, that is also only ever positive, right? Loved how much time you spent with those girls who were clearly off track. Loved how you got them redirected. Great job really connecting with them and telling them your story. And then I always end with a bright spot. That's 3 bright spots before I hit send. Any additional comments? I might put questions there. I used to work with an amazing school leader named Robert Cool, and he used to do this thing called a 4-2-Q. 4 things that that he thought were pretty great, 2 things that he wanted the teacher to work on, and questions that were generated. So my additional comments is my Q. How long did I stay in the class? So sometimes teachers will be like, how long were you even in there? So this is where I'm able to tell them. And then I have trained my entire leadership team on being able to use this document. So we're all using it for walkthroughs. I have received a lot of positive feedback from teachers showing a lot of appreciation, like, wow, I really appreciate that. Thank you for the bright spots. And no matter what, it's my 3rd month at Lincoln, y'all, 3rd. There is nothing critical coming out of my mouth right now. There is nothing but love. There is nothing but growth. There is nothing but appreciation. And when those teachers start opening the door and trusting me, I'm slowly finding my places to say, hey, can I talk to you a little bit about like how we can maybe get more voice into your classroom? Would you be interested in that conversation? But I can't bring that first because I don't have any level of trust yet. So I got to get there, right? And I'll get there. I'm slowly getting there. One of the teachers who told me she'll remember my name in 3 years walked up to me and said, hey, Miss Melissa. And I said, you remembered my name. And she was like, well, it's hard not to. You're all over the place. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Always start with the bright spots. Always start with the bright spots. Doesn't matter. And then I always use crucial conversation state model anytime I have to go to someone with a critical conversation or a question I need to ask or a concern that I'm having. All credit and shout out to High Tech High to sending me to this training, which was like one of the most formative that I've ever been through. And I still have the book. I have 3 copies of the book, 1 here, 1 at my office, and 1 in my car. You think I'm joking? I really do. I use the state model all the time. State what so going into a crucial conversation, I'll always start by saying, hey, if it's okay, I want to talk to you about something that I saw or something that I heard or something that kind of has come to me. But I really am here to help try to figure out kind of what is the truth behind that and to have a conversation with you about it. Are you okay with that? So I'll state what I first saw, heard, or believe, right? Then I'll test my hypothesis. Then I'll ask for input or clarification from the other person. Then I'll restate what I heard from that person. And then I'll test my new thinking or share an appreciation. Using this model consistently has really helped because I think it's helped to create the reputation for me that I'm never going to come at you sideways. I'm never going to come at you with like my fists up ever. This is how I'm going to come to you all the time. I think the last thing I would want to say about building community is, if you are in San Diego, then I'm sure you've heard the news that Lincoln High School released a letter yesterday that we are not going to play Cathedral Catholic in our football game that we're supposed to play with them. If you're not in San Diego, the basics are in April of last year, we played a football game against Cathedral where some of their students were seen on social media wearing a t-shirt that said Catholics versus convicts. And they had also posted some pictures of some gang signs and making fun of our community. And we made the decision, the very controversial decision this week, not to play them. We're supposed to play them on Friday night. We have taken the forfeit, which is pretty crazy because right now our football team is 6-1 and headed to the playoffs. One of the main reasons we chose to do that is because Chris Emden says, there is a frustration in communities when you are not able to express yourself, and there is a tension that exists when you hide who you are or you dim your light for the comfort of an institution or the individuals within it. It is captured in the ever-present struggle that ratchetemic educators face when someone in the school building or outside of it tells them that they are being too friendly with students, or they are not being authentic, or they're not listening to that which has been brought to them that they should do because that's the way things are done. To get beyond that tension and the ensuing frustration, we have to train ourselves to offer ourselves up to the world and to ensure that we're doing that from a place of our true authenticity. This allows us to embrace our radical vulnerability, which is at the root of being ratchetemic. Owning how you look, talk, face your fears, face your inferiorities, and then recognize the uniqueness of your particular ways of looking, talking, and being in the world are how you create and claim power. Even in the face of institutions and their agents who will try to make you feel inadequate or tell you what you should do, you should always be your most ratchetemic self. And I'm proud to say that I'm working hard to be that every day at Lincoln and throwing my support behind our decision to say, we don't believe that racial equality comes in a checklist or a single training. We are taking Friday back to show that we have that capability. So that's my relationship building talk. I'm done. I hope that was long enough, John.
I don't even know how to respond. Man, oh man. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, I mean, shoot, I would say we stream the impact. What did you guys feel? What did you think?
I'm going to jump in. Melissa, I'm the program manager for youth advocacy. It's really nice to meet you, and I'm really proud to be in a district with you.
Thank you.
So that was amazing. It was so lovely to hear from you. Like I said in the chat, there was a moment that felt emotional because recognizing that this could have very well just been a delivered speech, but I've seen that. And I've seen the impact that have, and I've seen the reality of this. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that, though, in articulating it in such a way that we can ideally, it's not about hearing it, it's about being able to take pieces of this. And for me, what I hear is that those things that you did, that we can do those things. We can connect with our teachers, we can connect with our students, we can let them know. It's incremental, it's small, but we can let them know that we see them, that we love them, that we value them, that we're there for them, that we value relationship. And so that's my big, huge takeaway. I'd love to kind of transition this into some Q&A, and so that we can hear from those members of our cohorts. One thing that I would say right away, Melissa, is that I know that we're going to hear from a lot of the cohort about just kind of sharing some resources. And so while we're here, while I have you, would you mind, you and I will just continue the conversation, and maybe you could share either, your slides with us for starters, but I'm really looking forward to kind of continuing this conversation. So let's open it up to some questions, Q&A.
I'm happy to share, by the way, I did see some people wanted to see the observation walkthrough. I'm happy to share. I would need to make a blank copy. Obviously, I can't share it with the notes that I've sent to teachers, but I'm happy to make a blank copy, and then I can get that to John. You can make your own. I think it'll even stay with the settings. I think you might have to download the Autocrat. It's an Autocrat extension that I put onto the form so that it auto emails. So when you see me fill that out, I do it on my phone. So I go into classrooms, I fill it out on my phone, and when I hit submit, it automatically emails. The teacher gets the email before I leave the room. So, but you might have to download the Autocrat extension to be able to use it. So if you try it and it doesn't work, I'll send it to you with all my settings. You'll just delete my teacher's emails and put your own in there.
Wow.
I'm Melissa. That was amazing. I'm processing. Like I checked 3 times while you were talking to make sure the recording was recording. And I also want to send this, to like my principal, and you were amazing. Just
Thank you.
Blown away. The slides, are you going to share those slides?
I just put them in the chat. So the
Great.
slides are there, and they should be open. And then I just need to figure out how to get you the walkthrough document in a blank form.
Okay. I wonder whether my big focus this year is intervention. And you talked a little bit about your meetings, your student-led meetings. And I wondered what else you might say about your goals in terms of intervention.
Yeah. Student-driven, 100% student-driven as much as they can be. I think, I don't know what sort of student population you're working with, but the student population at Lincoln is full of phenomenally bright and loving and vibrant human beings who need a lot of agency, who haven't necessarily grown up in a way or a space where their voice has been central. So I try to go slow to go fast. And I have to be honest, like, It's not a very popular way of being, especially with district mandate. Many of us are in districts, right? With district mandates that say, you got to do equity-based grading, and you got to do, you got to do everything around the QLIs and the QTPs, and please make sure that you do something right. Oh, and by the way, have you seen the test scores at Lincoln? You got to make sure you do that too. And please give the FAST, and please give the DEMI, and right. And I'm like, woohoo, wait. Let me just love on them first. Like, I can't get to that yet. So student driven, right? So when I sit with them, I say, okay, so of all of these things, which one do you want to handle first? Because all too often as adults, what we say is, I always say, I promise you, I will never say the stupid adult stuff. Stupid adult stuff is like, you need to do your work, right? And they're like, yeah, I do know that. Why aren't you asking me the right questions, right? Or we ask stupid questions like, school starts at 8:35. It's 8:40. I know. You're not asking me the right question. So for me, it's about being willing to go slow to go fast. Where do you want to start, sweetheart? Tell me about the class that you feel the strongest connection with the teacher. Tell me about the class that we're going to focus on being in for 90 straight minutes. And we're going to focus on getting our work done to the point that we are feeling that sense of agency and authenticity. Just one, Miss Melissa? Just one, sweetheart. Just one. Right? And so I think we all too often, we put our desire, like, and let me be clear, I've got to put it out in the universe, right? I am going to be the school leader that's going to help Lincoln get to the point that we are no longer the pariah of 9 and 12% testing scores. And I don't give a shit about the testing scores at Lincoln. So those two things are both true, right? But it's my job to take a step back and say, yeah, babe, just one. Maria, it's okay. You can quote me on that. Because if I spend all my time doing that, I'm going to end up down the same rabbit hole of previous, administration that find themselves lost. So small, incremental, student driven, because in 2 weeks, when I go back and I say, tell me about how things are going, they go, yeah, it's better. Okay. Are we ready to add another class? Are you ready? But if I would have lumped all 5 of them on top of them, we wouldn't be there. So that's what I would say is we have to fight. Relationships are not built fast. What's that Native American saying? Together, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So, I think we have to slow down. We have to slow down and we have to listen a lot more.
Thank you.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for all of this. This is amazing. You mentioned code switching, and I think I need to do some more research around that. But I was wondering if you might be able to give a couple more examples, kind of within your context of why that's toxic and how it plays in what you do.
Yeah. So I'm assuming everybody knows, but code switching is the phenomenon whereby people of color in particular are expected to sort of adjust the way that we communicate so that we fit into the dominant narrative, right? So there's a certain way that you speak at school, right? And I have to learn how to do that. I think that it's damaging because it takes a lot of us out of our authentic selves. It asks a lot of us to attempt to exist in a space like, I'm bilingual. I will sometimes have meetings with my kids in Spanish. And sometimes when teachers come in, I will keep speaking to the student in Spanish and they'll say, are you going to switch to English? And I'll say, just a second, right? So I think it's detrimental because it perpetuates, I think, a white supremacist culture where we are expected to communicate in a certain way. Look, it has not been popular for me. I have been told that I'm not a good fit for leadership because of the way I talk. I've been told by many people that, I don't fit the mold of a leader. I don't, but I can either choose to code switch myself out of that or not, right? Or choose to be my most authentic self. So I think that as people of color, I think we have to spend a little more time thinking about how we authentically want to say those things. I've had some teachers at Lincoln tell me they think it's a little weird that I tell kids I love them, but I do love them. And I say it all the time. And so I think it goes back to the warm demander slide from Zaretta Hammond, right? Zaretta Hammond is the one who says, you do not have to connect the same way as other people do, but you have to connect authentically. And I can't do that if I have code switched myself out of who I really am and how I really talk. So that's why I think it's so detrimental. I think it also asks our students to subvert their realness. And I think that, as Chris Emdin says, it takes all their genius out of the block, right? And I think that's the only way that we upend that dominant paradigm. I can be ratchet and academic, like Chris Emdin says. I can be ratchetemic. I can be both. I can be authentic. So I actively push away from it. I try really hard not to. Is that always true? Like when my boss is in the room? No, sometimes I fall back to my old habits, you know, because it's hard. It's hard when that positional authority walks in the room, but I'm trying really hard not to.
Melissa, thank you so much. We are so inspired. I really don't even know how to ask a question because you've given so many gems. And so I'm just wondering, what are some pivotal moments along the way in your journey that has created this courageous boldness for what you're doing? Because again, as we're growing in leadership, I know I've been struggling lately on just remembering who I am and my own identity and my own push for what I believe in and my own values, and finding that balance as we're investing in others, teachers and students. So what have been some of those pivotal moments for you in your own journey that have really shaped who you are today?
Yeah. I'd say a couple things. I think the first thing that really shaped me was, and this is God's honest truth, I'm not trying to be funny, is my arrival at High Tech High. I had been teaching in traditional schools, and I had stopped teaching at traditional schools because I was teaching at a large comprehensive high school in Virginia. And I had an assistant principal come into my room, and that was the days of NCLB, and where there were very prescribed learning targets for every single day, which is why I still get some heebie-jeebies when I got to ask about them, but you know, here we live. And I had a principal walk into my room because what I had done was I had taken the 2 weeks I was supposed to teach the Civil War, and I had compacted them to 7 days instead. And for those 3 days, I wanted to expand the section on Black history around Reconstruction. I'm sorry, not Reconstruction, the time after Reconstruction into the Civil Rights Movement, right? So the Great Migration, the Harlem Renaissance, all that beautiful history, right? So I had written that lesson plan. She came into my room, she picked up my lesson plan, and she said, Melissa, none of these are in the state standards for 11th grade. And I said, oh no, but I'm still teaching all the standards, I promise, but I did this, and she threw my lesson plan in the trash can. And she said, that might be nice for them to know, but they don't need to know it. And I was like, for the test? She was like, yeah. So at that point, I went home to my husband at the time, and I said, yeah, I can't do this anymore. So we moved to San Diego, and I waited tables for 2 years at Sammy's Wood-Fired Pizza because I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I cannot do that to children. I can't do that to myself. And then I heard about High Tech High. And when I showed up there, I was like, yeah, this place cannot be real. Like, this cannot be legit. Where's the learning targets? Who's about to walk in? I know this game. Don't play with me. Don't play with me, right? And then I was partnered with a real hack of a biology teacher named John Santos. Somehow I survived that. But I taught while I was teaching there, I began to see the ability to kind of craft my own voice. It took me some time. It was hard for me to let go of that curriculum, that curricular view. But that time was really shaping for me. I think the second event that happened is when I became dean of students, I found myself suspending 17 boys of color in a row. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? And it was because the boys of color who were coming to us were coming from places like Southeast San Diego, and their parents were putting them in schools like High Tech High, but they weren't seeing themselves, and they were in trauma, and they were bringing weed to school. And the policy was they got suspended for it. And I just said to myself, what the hell am I doing? And at that point, thanks to a conversation I had, I found myself in restorative justice trainings, and I found myself becoming a restorative justice trainer. And I was like, wow, there's a whole nother way to talk to kids. There's like a whole nother way that we could build this that is not zero tolerance. Because you can dress zero tolerance and put lipstick on it, but if you tell me I have to suspend them no matter what after the first, you could be as pretty as you want, but that is still zero tolerance. And I'm not buying it. And I didn't go into law enforcement. I went into education. So if I went into education, I'm not going to act like a law enforcement officer. I'm just not going to do it. I'd say the third most impactful thing that happened to me was, I had a really important mentor of mine tell me that he did not think I was a good leader. He didn't think I was capable of leading a school. And that really shocked me into becoming more aware. But what that did to me was after it initially beat me down, it helped me turn around and say, wait a minute, excuse my language here, fuck you. Like, you get to say that? I know who I am. Like, I'm going to set my own power and my own intention in this. And it's time for me to start building myself back up. And I credit big picture learning. My last big learning moment was getting to work with big picture learning, which is some of the most powerful moments I've ever had. Big Picture Learning is run by almost all people of color who are empowering voices for people of color. I did not find myself having to code switch in rooms full of people who didn't look like me and trying to figure out, can I say this? Can I not say this? Well, I just don't know if I can or not. I found myself in authentic spaces full of other people of color who were saying the same thing I was, and who were really cheering me on as I was leading a school and trying to make those changes. So I'm proud of the purposeful steps I've taken, even though my road has been really windy. And so to feel that vindication of being approached and saying, hey, we kind of want some of your sass over at Lincoln, like, that's an honor. That's an honor to get to work with those 1,500 babies. And the fact that you think that I might be able to do it means that I need to either accept that I can do it, or I need to say no. So I've accepted that I can do it, and that's the only option. There is no other option for those 1,500 babies. I can do it.
Thank you so much. I wish we had organ music, because we definitely are going to church with you. Thank you so much for those powerful insights.
Melissa, I was curious, you're clearly a leader with a lot of vision, and you seem like you're going about 25 hours a day. And you've also mentioned kind of like experiencing this trust gap in a new place that's had a lot of turnover. Like, what does delegation look like at the school, especially as you're getting started there?
I would actually call it, it's not right now. I'm not up to the point of delegating yet. I'm right now at the point of creating relationships and creating trust and proving myself. And so what I'm on right now is my hustle. I am offering what I can do with. I am offering a lot of, are you looking for feedback on that? Can I help you with that? I am spending a lot of time with my personal side of the org chart, saying, I got to kill this org chart. Like, I got to make sure this org, like, I got to handle it. I got to handle it. And so I'd say I'm not up to delegating yet. I am lucky. The school has an org chart, right? We have 2 co-principals and 3 vice principals, and we have a very clearly defined org chart. And what I'd love to see is more interconnectedness in our org chart, where more of us are teaming up to do things, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet, right? Even us as administrators, there's a lot of energy of kind of side-eyeing each other too, of like, is she for real? Is that for real? Is she going to pull the rug out from under me? Like, what's going on? So what delegation will look like, I hope, is de-siloing us, pulling us together to be more of a team. But teams have to be built. And at Lincoln, there's a lot of team building to do. So right now, what I'm choosing to do is to prove myself, be on my hustle, be there, be out of the classroom, answer my walkie-talkie when they call my name, no matter how much I hate that walkie-talkie and would love to smash it every day. Answering emails, being responsive, sharing my org chart, doing everything on it, doing it as well as I can, sharing reflections. I send an email out every Friday with reflections on the week, appreciations. I'm not there yet, but that's the plan. That's the plan. The plan is de-siloing, but that's a year 3 plan. I'm currently in year 1 relationship building.
Hey folks, I just wanted to send out a quick time check. We're going about a 1-minute warning, and we're going to head into break at 5:05. After break, we're going to head to Kim's at 5:10. We're going to show up in Kim's Zoom room, which is posted in this link here. For those of you that want to stick around during this break and stay with Melissa, that's absolutely fine. I plan on doing the same. But just to let you know that the break's going to be from 5:05 to 5:10. Is there any last quick 1-minute questions, burning questions?
I'll try to be short. I'm not good at that.
Oh. And so those of you that are going to head off to break, by all means, stream some love, maybe a takeaway that you're coming away from this talk with in the chat.
Come to Lincoln. Yes, come to Lincoln. If anybody wants to come and hang out, come to Lincoln.
Well, Victoria is going to join you there.
I just wanted to say, like, last minute, thank you so much. That was like so amazing, inspiring, and it's great. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
I also want to say thank you. You know, I love you so
Hi,
much.
Arlene.
And like when I say, I'm like trying not to cry right now. When I say like I needed to, like I needed this, Melissa, like that is where I'm at right now. Like, and I just wanted you to know that you had that impact on me today. In like being in a space where I've been feeling very disillusioned and having like made this move to a really traditional setting in a district. And so I needed this. I love you. And I already texted you, so I want to come visit.
I know you can, Arlene. You have it in you. You've always shown that. You can. Si podemos. Si se puede. Ándale pues. Let's do it. Okay?
Thank you.
Everyone's leaving. Hi, John. How are you? Can I tell you that I almost grabbed my painting of you and Jeremy and put it up right behind me, but then I thought,
I completely forgot about that painting.
oh, I have it.
Oh my God.
It's right in the other room. I thought, you're like a big time professor now. I can't
Yeah.
call you out like
I'm
that.
super- Yeah, did you catch up? Did you catch on to that? How big time I am now? I'm pretty
Yeah.
big time since you
You're
last.
a huge fucking deal. Yeah.
Don't go showing any pictures of me because I'm a big deal.
For everyone who's here, I have some pictures to share with you. I've secretly added them to the end of my slides. So when they get the slides,
So you guys have no idea what she did one time. She snuck into my classroom when we're teaching partners and she changed I don't even know how you do this. This is Star Trek shit she did. She changed the setting on my computer so that anytime I type biology, it autofilled the word pseudoscience. And anytime I type the word and, it autofilled the word ass. And so I'm like one of those people that I look at my keys as I type. And I'm just sending email after email after email for a whole day to all these people. And then you get Melissa Agudelo, my teaching partner, just reveling in it. She also broke into my house once.
oh no, wait, before you tell that story, I have to say, my favorite was when you finally discovered it, you had sent an email to Ben Daly that was full of ass, ass, ass. And Ben Daly's response was like, I just figured it's just John Santos. He's like, I didn't think much of it. I was like, see?
Exactly. Teflon. Can't get me. But yeah, she broke into my house, took all the plants in my house and put them all in one room. And then when I came home, I was like, she's right. This is what my house should look like. It should look like a jungle. That's what kind of teaching partnership we had.
Well, what lucky kids to have you two.
Yeah. I don't know how much they learned, but they laughed a lot.
We're still...
My other favorite moment was when John came into my still very traditional class and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm teaching about the presidents. John, who was your favorite president? And John said, Benjamin Franklin.
I had a strange arrangement with my high school swim coach to where he was my coach and my history teacher. And he's like, you keep swimming fast, you can sleep through history. And I did. I didn't. Oh, man.
First year teaching and it was the beginning. And I remember I was like, I was like super uncomfortable. I was like, John, I need to talk to you for a second.
And also when we first met each other, we were in this office and it was Kelly Wilson, who was the director at the time, Melissa Agudelo, and myself. And Kelly was bringing in these different candidates who would potentially be my partner. And like Melissa and I connected almost this quickly and almost this wonderfully. And I was just like, that's it, you're hired. And Kelly was like, whoa, slow your roll. That's not how it works, John. You can't hire people. Like
Kelly was like, wait a second. I was like, great, thanks, John.
Get my shit, it's in the car.
It's true. These are all true stories. Oh man, I don't think kids learned anything, but it was a lot of fun.
All right, Melissa, we
All
love
right,
I
go back
love
and
you.
I love you too. Go back and be very professorial, please.
Okay, take care. Thank you so much. Can't wait to catch up. Mwah.
See you later.
Bye.